how do you go about judging if you can capture a value in a space? Because you see in the green bubble, it's not enough to see a trend that creates value to people. You actually need to capture some of that value. How do you assess the valuation on one hand, but also what you think you can capture out of that market?
Yeah, so I'm very conscious about the fact that in order to capture value, it's not enough that the market is growing. Let's say that the market for soap is growing. Um, but if any producer of soap have zero competitive barriers and there are lots and lots of producers who are producing soap, it could be, I mean, this is just, I mean, I just imagine this as an example, but we could imagine that market for soap grows 20% a year for a long, long time, but nobody really makes big money on it. So you have lots of cases of that. So you
But
have
isn't
some,
the airline industry is that example, basically? I think if you
yeah,
calculate the whole industry, I don't think there's a lot of revenue left.
yeah, that the airline is definitely an example. And I had the idea, this is many, many years ago, to make a hedge fund or a fund that only did three things. It was perpetually short airlines and then long equities for the same amount. And then it was perpetually short gold and long high yield currencies for the same amount. And so there would have been, if I'd done that in the 1980s, there would have been some scary moments where it went the wrong way, but on average, it would have been a massive money machine. So you need to have some competitive barriers. And I'll give one example of a very simple company that I invested in. That was in 2001, I think. It was Jungfraubahn. It was a railway in Switzerland that goes from Interlaken into the Jungfrau Mountains, and then it goes in circles inside the mountain and reaches the top at 4,000, 600 meters, I think. So when I bought it, it had a price earnings of 10, so earnings yield of almost 10%. And the point was, it's not going to get a competitor. I mean, if people want to go to see the top of that mountain, unless they will allow, a lot of quadcopters or whatever, it will never have a competitor. And it was a fantastic investment. And then, but this was a quite small company, but I ended up at one point, I owned actually a quite substantial part of it. But then I saw Warren Buffett, who thinks like me just 10 times better and manages a trillion times more money than I do. He bought a railway across the Midwest with the same rationale that they would not have a competitor and there would always be a need to move stuff across there. So these are two examples, similar examples of competitive barriers. But in tech, which is where a lot of the excitement is and the money can be made and the value can be created, it's network effects, very often network effects. And it does, what you create could be sophisticated, but doesn't need to be, as long as you create network effects. And that's
Agree.
why companies like Instagram and YouTube and so on have crazy valuations very, very early.